We need to approximate, so therefore we'll be using our calculator. However, our calculator does not have a secant on it, but you should remember that secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So we're going to actually go the reciprocal of cosine, 1 over cosine of our angle, and we'll type that into our calculator. Well, when we type that into our calculator, and you'd want to make sure you're in the degree mode since you have degrees here, it looks like this, and we'll approximate our answer of 2.65. Over here, we need to approximate your 1 or cosecant, which is 1 over sine. Cosecant's not on your calculator, so you're going to want to do 1 over sine of this. And since there's no degree symbols up here, you want to make sure your calculator is in the radian mode. You type that into your calculator, get your decimal approximation of about 3.89. We want to go ahead and solve. Since we're looking for an angle, and we're looking for our angle between 0 degrees and 360 degrees, you'd want to make sure your calculator is in the degree mode. You need to go ahead and get sine by itself. So to do that, you'd actually have to do the sine inverse of both sides. Sine inverse of the left side drops off your sine and leaves you only with your angle. Sine inverse of the right side. Then you want to type that into your calculator, just like we were doing before on the previous screen. And we would get this. Now, you're going to have a second answer because you're dealing with your sine. Sine deals with your height. Where else are you at this same height of this? Well, there'd be another spot right over here. How do you get to that second angle? It's always going to be supplementary. So basically, if you know your first angle, you can get your second angle by subtracting it from 180. So if you go 180 degrees minus your 55.336 degrees, that's where the 124.664 degrees comes from. When you're dealing with cosine, once again, you'd want to get your angle by itself, so you do the cosine inverse of each side. Cosine inverse on the left undoes your cosine. Cosine inverse on the right, you want to go cosine inverse, which is second cosine. Type this in, and then it gives you 131 degrees approximately. Now, you're going to also have to find your second angle. Well, your one angle then is over here. Cosine deals with how far left and right you go. Where else are you the same distance left? Well, that would be down here. So in other words, what we have right here matches with what we have this way going negative. But we are actually looking for this whole angle right here. So to get that, all we have to do is take our answer, which we have right here, and subtract it from 360. That means getting rid of this, and it leaves you with your red. So you go 360 degrees minus your 131.330 degrees, and we get this. When you are subtracting or dealing with cosine, you always want to subtract your angle from 360. When you're dealing with sine, you get your second angle. It's always supplementary, so you subtract from 180. Here we're looking at the cotangent. Well, your calculator does not have a cotangent or cotangent inverse on it. So you need to go ahead and turn it into tangent. So let's take the reciprocal of the left side, which is tangent. So therefore, we got to do the reciprocal of the right side, which is 1 over our number. Once again, to get your angle by itself, you'd have to get rid of your tangent. So we're going to have to do the tangent inverse on both sides. So then we take the tangent inverse of this angle, type it into your calculator, and it will give you 36.023 degrees. Now, tangent, because our period is 180 degrees, all we have to do to get our second answer is to either add or subtract 180. If we subtracted 180 from our 36, it would give us a negative angle. And remember, we were looking for an angle between 0 and 360 degrees positive. So if we go 180 and add our 36.023, that would give us our other angle, which is between that 0 and 360 degrees. When you're dealing with tangent, you always just want to go ahead and add or subtract 180, which is a full period. On this one over here, we want to go ahead and do the same thing, but we're now dealing with between 0 and 2 pi. So you want to make sure your calculator is switched to the radian mode. It's secant. Your calculator does not have a secant inverse, so you got to flip it into cosine. So if I flip the left side, I get cosine. So therefore, I need to flip the right side. Then to get rid of your cosine, you need to go ahead and do the cosine inverse of both sides. Now this is what I need to type into my calculator. I type that in and I get 1.869. Now, remember on the last slide we said when we're dealing with cosine, you just subtract your angle from 360. That's great when you're in the degree mode, but since we're in the radian mode, instead of subtracting our angle from 360, we'll subtract our angle from 2 pi. So you go 2 pi minus your angle you just had, and then that gives us our 4.423. You will need to have this chart memorized. You should pretty much have it memorized already, along with having your three main trigonometric or Pythagorean theorem identities memorized, and the definitions of sine, cosine, and tangent on your unit circle. In addition to having those memorized, you also need to have your unit circle memorized. You will need to have your radian and your degree measure for each angle and the coordinates of your point. Now, the ones on the outside of your coordinates are really your tangents. You do not have to have those memorized, but you do need to have everything else memorized. And you will have timed quizzes on these. So the ones I'm highlighting are the ones you do not have to have memorized. Everything else you will need to go ahead and generate for your quizzes.